Taylor Swift just watched her best friend Blake Lively settle one of the most explosive legal battles in Hollywood history. Sources close to the situation say she's been Blake's rock throughout this entire 2-year nightmare. And considering Taylor's own text messages to Blake were collected as evidence that was set to be revealed at trial, this settlement probably comes as a relief to everyone involved, including Taylor, who was potentially going to be dragged into testimony about what Blake told her during the filming of It Ends With Us. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni announced a joint settlement on Monday, just 2 weeks before they were scheduled to face each other in federal district court in Manhattan. After more than 2 years of accusations involving sexual harassment allegations and claims of an online smear campaign, the two actors released a remarkably amiable joint statement saying the case is now closed. But let's talk about Taylor's role in all of this, because it's more significant than most people realize. Taylor Swift and Blake Lively have been best friends for over a decade. They're not just celebrity acquaintances who take photos together at events, they're genuine close friends. Blake's daughters have appeared in Taylor's music videos. Taylor has written songs referencing Blake's family. When Blake was going through this legal hell, Taylor was right there with her. According to court documents that were released during the litigation, text messages from Taylor Swift to Blake Lively were collected as part of the evidence. Those texts were going to be presented at trial. That means Taylor was texting Blake during the filming of It Ends With Us or immediately after, probably hearing Blake's complaints about what was happening on set in real time. The trial was widely anticipated, in part because of the fame of those involved. Text messages from Taylor Swift to Blake, her friend, were collected as part of the evidence. Imagine being Taylor Swift and knowing that your private text messages to your best friend about a sensitive, traumatic situation were going to be read aloud in a courtroom and reported in every media outlet in the world. Those texts probably contained Blake venting about Justin Baldoni's alleged behavior on set. They probably contained Taylor giving advice, offering support, maybe even encouraging Blake to speak up or take action, and all of that was going to become public record at trial. So when this settlement was announced, you can bet Taylor breathed a massive sigh of relief, not just for Blake, but for herself too, because having your private conversations with your best friend exposed in court is nobody's idea of a good time, even for someone as public as Taylor Swift. The joint statement released by Blake and Justin's lawyers was surprisingly friendly. It acknowledged that concerns raised by Miss Lively deserved to be heard, and expressed hope for closure and a respectful environment online. That language suggests both sides wanted this to go away before it got even messier at trial. But here's what we know from the court documents that were already released. Blake accused Justin of sexual harassment on the set of It Ends With Us, including making inappropriate comments about her body, discussing pornography in front of crew members, and invading her personal space without consent. Justin vehemently denied the harassment claims, but what couldn't be denied was that he hired crisis PR professionals who compiled strategy documents about how to protect his reputation and damage Blake's if she went public with allegations. One of those PR professionals, Melissa Nathan, sent a message saying, "You know we can bury anyone." That quote became one of the most damaging pieces of evidence in the case, because it suggested the PR team wasn't just defending Justin, they were actively planning to destroy Blake's reputation. And according to the evidence, they may have succeeded to some extent. Around the time of the movie's premiere in 2024, Blake faced a surge of negative online commentary criticizing her for being too cheerful during press for a movie about domestic violence. The question at trial would have been, did that criticism arise organically, or was it seeded and amplified by Justin's PR team? The judge found that the PR team had at least arguably crossed the line by amplifying negative content about Blake and planting stories in tabloids like the Daily Mail. So where does Taylor fit into all of this? Well, if Blake was texting Taylor during or after filming, Taylor would have been one of the first people to hear Blake's side of the story. Taylor would have been a witness to Blake's emotional state at the time, and if Blake's lawyers wanted to prove that Blake was genuinely upset and traumatized by what happened on set, Taylor's testimony about what Blake told her could have been powerful evidence. On the flip side, Justin's lawyers might have tried to use Taylor's texts to argue that Blake was exaggerating or strategizing about how to take control of the movie away from Justin. Without seeing the actual texts, we don't know which narrative they would have supported. But we do know that Taylor Swift testifying at a sexual harassment and retaliation trial about her best friend would have been massive news. It would have dominated headlines for weeks. And Taylor, who's been very strategic about her public image and her involvement in legal matters, probably wasn't thrilled about the prospect. Taylor has dealt with her own legal battles over the years. She famously sued a radio DJ for sexual assault and won a symbolic $1 verdict. She's been in court over songwriting credits. She knows how brutal and invasive the legal process can be, especially when the media is watching every move. So when Blake was going through this, Taylor probably had unique insight into what Blake was facing and what a trial would entail. She could offer not just emotional support as a friend, but practical advice as someone who's been through high-profile legal battles herself. The settlement means we'll never know what Taylor's texts said, we'll never see her testify, we'll never hear her publicly discuss what Blake told her about Justin Baldoni's alleged behavior. All of that stays private now. And that's probably exactly what both Taylor and Blake wanted, because even though Blake was fighting for justice and accountability, the trial would have been a media circus that would have consumed both their lives for weeks or months. The settlement also protects other potential witnesses who might have been called to testify, including Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds. Court documents suggested Ryan might have been called as a witness, which means the entire Reynolds-Lively family, Blake's closest circle, which includes Taylor, was potentially going to be pulled into this very public trial. Now that it's settled, all of that goes away. Blake gets some level of vindication. The joint statement acknowledges her concerns deserved to be heard, which is important language. Justin avoids a trial where damaging evidence about the PR campaign would have been presented to a jury, and everyone can move on. For Taylor, this settlement means her private support for her best friend stays private, her texts stay sealed, her potential testimony never happens, and she can go back to being Taylor Swift, pop star, songwriter, businesswoman, instead of Taylor Swift, witness in a sexual harassment trial. But make no mistake, Taylor was there for Blake throughout this entire ordeal. Best friends don't just disappear when things get messy and legal. They show up, they support, they text, they probably helped pay for lawyers. They definitely provided emotional support. And now that it's over, Taylor can celebrate with Blake that this chapter is finally closed. No trial, no testimony, no more legal warfare. Just two friends who can move forward without the weight of a pending lawsuit hanging over them. The settlement was announced with no financial terms disclosed. We don't know if money changed hands or what other conditions were agreed to, but we do know that both sides are calling it closure. And for Taylor Swift, who was involuntarily pulled into this mess because she had the misfortune of being Blake Lively's best friend during a traumatic experience, that closure probably feels like a huge relief. Your best friend's legal battle is over, your text messages stay private, you don't have to testify in court, and you can go back to just being a supportive friend instead of a potential witness. That's a win for Taylor, and more importantly, it's a win for Blake, who can finally move on from this nightmare. The settlement is done, the case is closed, and somewhere Taylor Swift is probably texting Blake right now saying, "I'm so glad that's over."